Hello, everybody. In today's video, we are going to talk about some facts of England. And these are facts that you probably didn't know about because they are really curious. And they are really important so we can understand more about the English culture that has so much to do with the English language. It's a really nice thing to know. So today we're going to take a look at these facts. So I want to start with a little bit of history for you guys. So first of all, it's nice to know that England became a country in the 10th century. It's really, really old, right? The earliest thing that we found in England, in the English territory, was a Neanderthal skull that was discovered in Kent, and it was estimated to be around 400,000 years old. So it's really, really old. And humans are documented as having inhabited Great Britain since the Iron Age. So it's really old. These humans firstly were from the Celtic Briton tribes, right? And then after we had the invasion from the Romans, and after of the Anglo-Saxons and other Germanic tribes. And then in 927, the land was officially named the Kingdom of England. That is the Kingdom of England. That is from the Anglo-Saxons, right? So the name is really, it has everything to do with the tribe of the Anglo-Saxons, right? Another great fact is that England includes over 100 small islands, so it's really bigger than we think. So we have Wales, Scotland, but we also have North Sea and the Irish Sea, right? We have the main island, but we still have 100 smaller islands. These include the Isle of Wight, the Isle of Scilly, the Farne Island, and the islands of Furness. But most of these islands, they are uninhabited by people, and they're really, really small. So it's really rare for people to go and visit. There it is. The name England stems from the Angles tribe. So during the Anglo-Saxon period, the remaining people known as the Angles tribe settled in England. They spoke Old English, so it's nice to know that English was a little bit different than it is today. They spoke Old English. And then, translating the name of England, we have Land of Angle, that is the name of people from the Anglo-Saxons, right? England is also divided into what we call counties. These counties are really are some geographical divisions that are interesting because they are really different from some other kingdoms that had normally other kinds of divisions, right? So we still have them normally today. So we have 9 regions split into 48 ceremonial counties. So the original counties, they were created by the Normans, but they changed a little bit and they have become more interconnected, right? They were a little bit different because actually they were really complicated. It was really complicated for people to go from one county to the other, right? Because of problems with transportation. Transportation was really hard, but nowadays it's much easier to go from one to the other, right? And like I told you, it's a geographical division, so it's more for distinction, but we have also political purposes in the middle of that. And we have a lot of what we call cities that have the suffix shire that comes from these counties. So Yorkshire, Leicestershire, Derbyshire. And guys, I'm pronouncing these names in a more American way because that's my English. But I'm sure in different accents in England, they are spoken in a different way. They are pronounced in different ways. For example, I've seen people saying Yorkshire or or even Yorkshire and Yorkshire. So it's really different from place to place, you know? There is one name that is written like Worcestershire, but we pronounce it in a really strange way. I don't even remember it right now how to pronounce it, but it's really strange. But a lot of people, even the English and American, they have this word as a joke because we can't pronounce them. We can pronounce it, and even the native, they have problems um, reading it or pronouncing it because it's really counterintuitive, you know. Another cool fact is that Queen Elizabeth was the longest reigning monarch. So she reigned from 1952 to 2022. So it's a lot. She lived very much. So she was the longest reigning monarch, right? And then she reigned for just over 70 years until her death, aged 96, right? Oh, another good curiosity is about the BBC. You might know BBC because of their series or even uh, their newspaper or something like that. But it is the older broadcaster in the world, you know. So BBC is an acronym for British Broadcasting Corporation, and it's the country's national broadcaster and the oldest in the world because it was founded in 1922, right? And it's the largest in employee number because they have more than 22,000 people working there. They have also TV channels and everything. And they don't have adverts like we have here in Brazil, but the people need to pay a fee of these much pounds to fund it. So we need to pay in order to not have the advertising or anything like that, right? Moving on. Now, I will talk a little bit about the customs in English, in England, right? So, English people are obsessed with tea. This is a big stereotype, right? And it actually is kind of true because England is one of the largest consumers of tea in the world. So, we have about 1.9 kilos of tea per person every year. That's a lot of tea. So it has been popular since the 18th century. And normally they have English breakfast tea with milk and sugar. And normally they serve it with biscuits. And then you can dunk the biscuits in the tea, you know. But you can try this breakfast tea here in Brazil. I know that we have some great brands that sell this tea here. For example, Lipton and Twinings. These are, by the way, English brands. And you can try them with milk. I really recommend you to try because milk gives a certain commodity. It gets creamy, you know, so it's amazing, guys. Uh, we also have the national symbol of England, that is the lion. So the lion has been a symbol since when King Richard first started ruling, right? Because he was known as Richard the Lionheart. In Portuguese, we have the name, you probably heard it in history classes, Ricardo Coração de Leão, right? And this is because the lion is associated with bravery, strength, courage, right? And then in the official royal coat of arms, there is a red background and three golden lions, right? You also find three lions on the badge of the English national football team. The women's team of football is also called the Lionesses. It's really interesting because J.K. Rowling in Harry Potter, she chose the lions to be the Gryffindor symbol, right? And they have they are the symbol of bravery, courage. So it's nice for us to think about that, right? England just won the World Cup in 1966. This was the only time and England won with 4 goals against Germany that had made 2 goals. For you guys that who like soccer, football, right? Another thing is that English people, they normally eat a roasted dinner every Sunday. So they use the oven and they do a roast meat or something like that, right? They make this meal, you know. So normally roasted meat like chicken, lamb, beef, with roast vegetables too, like potatoes, vegetables, Yorkshire pudding, stuffing, gravy. We have vegetarian versions like nut roast, vegetable Wellington, and then you can also go to a pub or something like that to try these delicious meals. And this tradition comes from the late 18th century when the families left meat cooking in the oven while attending Sunday church service. And then they would return from the church service and the meat would be ready. So this became a tradition, right, in England. Another curiosity too that you probably don't know is that England has a free national health system that is really similar to our SUS, right? It was created in 1948 and it's free to citizens and they have a lot of investments and it's the fee is free, you know, you don't pay for anything. And it is the world's 5th largest employer and the biggest non-military public service because they have among they have around 1.7 million staff, you know, so that's a lot of people working. So the national health system is really important there in England, which makes it a little bit different from the United States, for example, in which the health system is you need to pay, right, to access it. Third, the population of England is also over 56 million people. So it's a lot of people, and this is the largest population ever recorded in the country, right? So this changed a lot because in 1801, there were only 10.5 million people in England. Look at how much it grew. It has been growing intensively, right? And I think it will grow even more. All right. Other facts that I think you will like. This one is cool for you guys, right? So English is the most spoken language in the world. So 98% of the country's residents speak English fluently in England, right? But it's nice because we had the influence of British Empire in a lot of, and also American television with Hollywood and everything in a lot of countries. So we have English being the most commonly spoken language in the world. And we can see here that an estimated 1.5 billion people out of the 7 billion world population speak English. And so it's a language that is really important. And it's also considered to be the lingua franca, right? So it's really interesting to know English because of that. Because when you travel, it's a really good thing to know English because you can communicate better. You can avoid problems, and it's really better to know this language. Probably you guys didn't know, but French was one of the official languages of England for a while, for some time, because from certain time to certain time, like 1066 to 1362, the official language was French because we had the invasion of the Normans, and then William the Conqueror, who was the king there, he introduced French as the language used by the government and upper classes. So English was used just for poor people, in this case, Old English, right? And then after it became the country's official language after a lot of changes. But we still have in English a lot of words and phrases that come from French, such as naive. We have a lot of words that come from cliche, uh, some words like that, right? Deja vu, some words like that. Uh, well, this is really cool too. English people all have different accents. So when you imagine the British accent, you probably think about something like the Queen's English, right? Like the language that people speak in London. But the accents are really different in England, right? So we had a lot of geographical difference between the areas, just like I told you, because of this difficulty in the transport. So we had this difference of language in a lot of places. So a lot of accents are different than what we call the standard British English. And it's really cool because, for example, we have some strong accents like in Newcastle, in Liverpool, and in Birmingham. You probably know Peaky Blinders. The English is really different. I personally think it's beautiful, but it might be a little bit harder for us to understand because we are more used to American English. But it's great. It's really beautiful, or how they would say beautiful. So also we have a curious fact that is England has produced many of the world's most famous musicians. Um, and here I'm mostly speaking of rock and roll, right? We had uh, great pop music and also great rock music. So we had the Beatles, right? They were really influential, and they started this thing about British rock, and it's nice because in Liverpool we have a lot of attractions, a lot of touristic spots uh, about the Beatles, right? And some other artists that you can think about are Ed Sheeran, Adele, Elton John, Queen, David Bowie. These are all from England, which is really cool, right? We also have one curiosity here that is Stonehenge. Stonehenge is one of the oldest man-made landmarks in the world. So it is composed of some ruins, and they have a circle with some stones aligning, and it's really great. It is protected legally uh, by UNESCO. So it's the British most famous landmark, right? And it's really fantastic. It's really worth to see it in person. Uh, it's nice to know too that you're never more than 113 kilometers from the sea, right? So it's really cool to know that anywhere you are in England, you are not so far from the sea, right? So we have the furthest point from the sea is Cotton in the Alps, which is a village in Derbyshire. Uh, but the seaside is really common there in England, right? And traditionally in the summer, people go to the sea. But the water is really cold there. So it's a little bit different from our beaches, in which we have a lot of heat that are really, really hot. There, it's a little bit cold. And England still uses imperial measures and pound. So they still use the pound for money, so they don't use euro. So they use pound sterling. And they still use the oldest currency, that is this GBP, right? So they still use these imperial measures. One other curious fact is that stamps were invented in England. So England is the only country in the world that doesn't display its names on its stamps. And it's really cool because they kind of consider treason to stick a stamp upside down. And actually, that is this was a law, but it has never been updated. And it's crazy because in England we have a lot of old laws that today they don't make more sense. They don't make sense anymore, but they are still in vogue. So it's really funny. You can see videos of people contradicting these rules to see what the guards would do, and it's really funny because most of the guards don't even know that that was supposed to be an offense, So it's really great. It's really funny. Another good thing is that the highest point in England is Cathal Pike. So it is the highest mountain, and it peaks at 978 meters above sea level. So it's really big, and it attracts thousands of tourists a year. So it's a little bit dangerous because the climb in bad weather can be really hard, but it's nice for you guys who like more adventure. This is a really strange kind of superstition, but it's really traditional. That is that in the Tower of London, we always need to have 6 ravens, right? Ravens are like crows, but a little bit bigger. And this comes from an old superstition, right? So we need to have there 6 ravens, and they clip the wings of the ravens for them not to fly away. And they stay there in the Tower of London. And they keep one more just in case, right? We don't know. Maybe one will die. We can't be out of ravens, right? And here, the website that I got the information from, it tells us the names of the ravens. They're Jubilee, Harris, Grip, Rocky, Erin, Poppy, and Merlina. Great names for the ravens. And our last curiosity. English had the first underground passenger railway in the world. So this is really something that England is known for. So it started the Metropolitan Railway in 1863. So the first line ran between Farringdon and Paddington stations. So we had steam trains. And so it was the first one, which is really old. And it's one of the busiest metro systems in the world. So it's one of the busiest subways in the world. So it has, for example, 296 million passenger journeys made in 2020. So it's a lot. And we also have the nickname for it, that is the tube, because it has a circular tunnel system. So a lot of people know there is slang for the underground system, that is the tube, right? So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you. Have an excellent time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.